Having done so many wildlife adventures, I thought of venturing into the northern part of this universe, and I was able to traverse the Alaskan northern areas to reach out to Kaktovik. So here we are talking of Kaktovik, a small town, 290 inhabitants. So flying over the Arctic region, after crossing the Arctic line, you can see in this video that this area is the area of the North Slope Borough and what we call the Northwest Arctic region or the census area. And we will be moving on to the Prudhoe Bay. We are not going to go to Borough. So we can see as we go along during our flight that most of these communities have no highways. Of course, it is the Arctic region. It's a very barren land. It's not very swampy though. Some places you can see those. There's usually this tundra that normally is seen in the Arctic region. The weather was fair, I would say, and we did see some snow-covered mountain ranges. The ecosystem could be seen with tundra covering mountain ranges and coastal plains, which normally harbor the bears, the wolves, the sheep, muscovine and caribous, and numerous other birds that one can see when one lands. Additionally, while flying, you can see that there is a long gas line that runs right through, and it is seen as white. Before we finally landed on the central point of Dead Horse, which has the bowhead whales. 3 bowhead whales are allowed to be killed per year by the local authorities in Kaktovik or the Barter Island. And the polar bears, they congregate here, they come down in pretty good numbers to feed on these skeleton and other flesh of the bowhead whales. This small town is becoming very popular because you can access to these wonderful large carnivorous creatures, the polar bear, right here, and there are now boats that can take you there almost every day of the week. And this little town of Kaktovik is on the Barter Island, on a little sea called the Beaufort Sea, which is the marginal sea to the Arctic Ocean in the north. So I have already stated that the capital of polar bear viewing is definitely Churchill in Manitoba in Canada, which also is not very far from the northern part of Alaska. It in fact has the same sea line as the Beaufort Sea, which extends down to almost the Canadian border. But the difference is that in Manitoba, there is more congestion and rush, although the prices will be almost the same. And the polar bear viewing would be a wee bit better than what it is here, because there are a larger number of polar bears in Churchill in Manitoba, because of this it's called the bear viewing capital of the world. However, Kaktovik, this small town, is also called the bear viewing capital of Alaska, and this is what has brought me here to the northern areas of Alaska, so that I'm able to see the like of these huge carnivorous giants, which I have never ever done, and this was always a dream, always on my bucket list, but today I am almost there. While I was squinting, I could see the barren land. Not much difference between the start from Seattle, from Fairbanks to Dead Horse, and we could see in the distance the portions of the ocean, and the land continued to be barren, with very, very little snow at this point in time. In this video, while I was squinting outside, I could see the clouds and the barren mountain region, and in the distance you can see the cloud cover. My colleagues are sitting, and I moved the camera to the right, and I could again see the clouds, not very cloudy though, but no signs of snow. In this, now I could focus on these snow-capped mountains of the Arctic region, and I could see the snow and the clouds below us, and the region seemed fairly mountainous. And we continued to travel to Dead Horse with a view of the Arctic region of northern Alaska. So I was pretty sharp on focusing through the clouds the runway to Dead Horse. You can see the city is very small, very thinly populated, and I believe that the population is small. There aren't too many polar bears in Dead Horse, and I could see specks of snow. 13. So now before the final landing on the airstrip that I could see, we could see a pool of water with the barren land, and the population seemed very small in Dead Horse. As I zoomed out to refocus in my next clip. We continue to land on the soil of Dead Horse. No human life seen, no polar bears, barren land with some population. So finally we took off from the Dead Horse airport to move towards our final destination, Kaktovik. You can see the inside of this small aircraft which is normally used over the Arctic region, and you can see it was raining as well. You can see that the runway at Dead Horse is fairly good. It is metalled, and it's a fair runway for a small aircraft like the one we were flying in. I was finally landing in Kaktovik, my dream destination for my polar bear expedition. Our area of polar bear viewing, and you can see that Marsh Creek Inn was the place we stayed, spent time before we finally took off in the Coast Guard boat. You can see the barren land and some houses, a small airport of course. Finally we were focusing on the polar bears, some of them sleeping in the distance as we moved towards them. And this was a great moment because this was the first time I had seen a polar bear in the open. Finally, I was able to view the walk of a polar bear, and though the ship was shaking, as you can see in the video, it really gave me quite a bit of viewing of this typical polar bear walk in Kaktovik. The polar bears are huge animals. You can see them. You can see this one here on the screen, and they could be very dangerous, and you can see two of them now. And there are many more. It only shows that the number of polar bears has increased in this part of the Arctic region. To make my video and follow a huge moving giant carnivorous across on the land. The most interesting aspect of my life, seeing this huge carnivorous animal on the land, not very far from where I was. And the walk was very pleasant, very soft, very composed. And he continued to move with his head forward, waterside. Then he got hold of the whale flesh and was happily enjoying it with a few birds circling around him. You could see the size of the bear, and I'm sorry that the boat was shaking because the sea, the Beaufort Sea, was quite choppy. He continued to munch on the wonderful meat, fish meat from the whale. I do believe here that my video may be extending, but the walk of the polar bear and their eating on Kaktovik is absolutely amazing, and this needs to be focused on extensively. In this video, you can easily see how huge the bear is. They weigh heavily, and the very purpose of their coming to this part of the Arctic region is to get hold of these whales, the bowhead whales. So now we can see clearly the huge bone piles from the beach stack whale material, the bowhead whales that are allowed to be killed in 3. 3 is the number of bowhead whales that are allowed to be killed by the authorities here in Alaska. And these people in Kaktovik, the small family of 290, will survive on 3 whales annually. You can see the skeleton of the thing, and you can also see quite a few bears lying after a breakfast. Finally, I hope you have all enjoyed this fascinating and exciting video to the polar bear capital of Alaska called Kaktovik, which is on the Barter Island.